Welcome to Raptors Recon, and today's topic is the Star Wars fatigue myth. Yep, it's a myth, all right, but let's get into an article first that discusses this, which I'm actually pretty surprised. It's out of Forbes, and I don't always agree with the author, Scott Mendelson, but his article is titled Star Wars Fatigue Not to Blame for Solo Box Office Disaster. All right, so with that, let's begin. Okay, so the article says there's going to be a lot of post-debut discussion concerning the shockingly poor debut. 103 million domestic as of Monday, with 65 million overseas as of Sunday, of Lucasfilm and Walt Disney's Solo: A Star Wars Story. And let's not mince words, it's a terrible debut for a film that, thanks to reshoots, wasn't remotely cheap to produce, and thanks to the infamously not leggy Memorial Day weekend, may not stick around much past early June. But if I may take a moment, I'd like to dispute something going around concerning so-called Star Wars fatigue. If you saw the previews, TV commercials, blog posts, and posters for Solo: A Star Wars Story, and said to yourself, that is something that I would like to see immediately upon release, you wouldn't have given two figs about it being the second Star Wars movie in 5 months. If Solo looked good enough to see this weekend on its advertised merits, the cast, the visuals, the story, the reviews, etc., then it wouldn't have mattered that it belonged to a brand that put out a new movie 5 months ago. It's not that different than Marvel releasing Black Panther, 698 million domestic, 1.34 billion worldwide, 2 months after Thor Ragnarok, which made 324 million, 854 million worldwide. 7 months after Spider-Man: Homecoming, 334 million slash 881 million, and 9 months after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which made 389 million domestic and 869 million worldwide. It's little different than Eclipse, which made 300 million domestic, 698 million worldwide, opening 7 months after Noon Moon, 296 million and 709 million, respectively. Ditto for Harry Potter 7.1, and that is 296 million and slash 960 million. Opening 7 months after, or excuse me, 7 months before Harry Potter 7.2, which made 381 million slash 1.34 billion. Or another example, Kill Bill Volume 1, opening in October of 2003, 70 million, and then slash 180 million, and then Kill Bill Volume 2, opening in April of 2004, earning 66 million and 152 million, respectively. Yes, some of those were finite stories, but then so was the Matrix trilogy, which crashed on its third offering, 416 million worldwide. 6 months after Matrix Reloaded topped 742 million global. Sure, Justice League bombed, 657 million on a 250 million plus budget, just 5 months after Wonder Woman, 821 million on a 150 million budget, and Back to the Future Part 2, 332 million, made more worldwide than Back to the Future Part 3, 244 million. But both sequels took a huge comparative downturn from Back to the Future, 541 million, 4.5 years prior. The above noted successes were box office hits because audiences, hardcore fandom, and or general audiences wanted to see them, even though prior installments had opened less than a year prior. And the disappointments noted above stumbled for reasons related specifically to their appeal as specific movies targeting overall moviegoers. Audiences weren't burned out on Star Wars. Folks just didn't want to see this Star Wars story in a world where A, Star Wars is no longer the only game in town, and B, folks have plenty of non-theatrical options. Sure, moving Solo to December might have helped secure a bigger opening and certainly longer legs. Disney prioritized Mary Poppins Returns, part of their homegrown live-action fairy tale subgenre, over the Han Solo-centric Star Wars story. Solo was felled by merely okay reviews, bad press, a divisive response to Last Jedi, a weak come see the guy you love not played by the actor you love, hook, a generic see how your favorite hero became your favorite hero template, and a release date surrounded by newer, fresher, would-be tentpole flicks. There are lessons to be learned in the aftermath. Solo was the first inessential, non-event Star Wars movie in an era where all non-event movies are struggling. But Star Wars fatigue isn't one of them. If audiences who showed up for Rogue One and The Last Jedi thought Solo was worth their time and money, they would have shown up if it was the first Star Wars film in 5 months or 5 years. The fault lies not in the brand or in oversaturation, but with the movie itself. Solo, a Star Wars story, bombed because of Solo, a Star Wars story. So what do you guys think about this article? Do you agree that the Solo Star Wars story bombed because of Solo, a Star Wars story? Or do you kind of key in on some of the reasons he talked about in the next to the last paragraph here? I'll kind of go over that right now and just give my opinion. So he talks about opening to bad reviews. Yeah, so on its own merits, if the story itself was good, I think people would come back to see it, so quality, I do agree with that. I agree. I'm pretty fair. I think if the movie on its own merits was able to wow people in the audience, it probably would have won a lot of folks over, even with a lot of the bad press and the other reasonings that are being that we'll go into here in a minute. But I do, at its core, if you put out a good Star Wars movie, the fans will come. It's just like anything. You put out a good product, the consumers, the customers, are going to buy it. It's really simple. So, yes, okay reviews, mediocre, a lot of bad press because of what happened with Lord and Miller getting fired and then having to do a search for a new director and having to do 80% plus reshoots. Yeah, that bad press kind of puts a bad taste in people's mouth, because it's like there's problems. So yeah, that did not help. There's a lot of contributing factors. I think this next one, though, I can't stop this enough, was what he said. A divisive response to The Last Jedi. A divisive response to The Last Jedi. Ding, 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 ding. Listen, to me, I know that he has it as the third reason, but I think that I'll let him, I can kind of agree if the movie was good on its own merits, in quality-wise, it would have shined. But I think for me, the number 2 reason that it failed, if not the number 1 in my eyes, was The Last Jedi. And not only the divisiveness of The Last Jedi, but all of the attacks on the fandom and the people who love Star Wars that came as a result of that. I mean, whose bright idea? I know whose bright idea. It was Rian Johnson's bright idea to make a movie that was so divisive that half the people loved it and half the people hated it. You could see his that this is what he likes to do. This is his mindset. But he is not a star. Let me tell you, he's not a Star Wars aficionado. I remember I was scanning through the interwebs here, and I saw people he didn't even know about Knights of the Old Republic or something like that. There's like a lot of real weird instances, and he talks about having to try and figure out Star Wars. He's trying to figure out. Look, if you hadn't figured out Star Wars, you should never have touched an original trilogy, / Skywalker saga story. Okay, enough said on that. So for me, one of the primary reasons, if not the primary reason, that Solo failed was as a response to The Last Jedi, and then all of the attacks on folks who did not like that and brought up constructive criticism and were basically attacked. And it wasn't just the fans, coming out and saying things. It was the leadership attacking the fans preemptively, or they go for the jugular, calling you racist and everything. That does not help you sell your brand, okay? Then, you get to this next point, which is a good point. And that is a week come see that guy you love not played by the actor you love. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm not going to go into it. There's so many other people out there, that give good reasons why Alden Ehrenreich was not the right pick. And really, he does not look anything, he does not act anything like the Han Solo we know. That doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So basically, what he's saying here is we, as the customers, didn't like the actor you picked. Hello. If you don't like who's picking, if it doesn't match, it doesn't connect, you're not going to get much traction there, and it's actually going to push people away. There you go. Next point, a generic see how your favorite hero became your favorite hero template. Yes, we don't want that anymore. We want something new. Now, it's okay to see a hero we know in an adventure, We don't need to see all these, origin stories and whatnot. And, we didn't really need this one. Solo was, nobody wanted to see this. That's the thing. It was so glaring. I don't know how they missed this. That nobody wanted to see a Solo movie. Nobody was asking for that. If you asked the fandom, probably at the top of the list was an Obi-Wan movie. I mean, Ewan McGregor is at the perfect age. That's probably at the top of the list. What's next? Maybe a Boba Fett movie. Now, they did announce that. That could be cool with bounty hunters, gangsters, the Hutts, etc. That'd be really cool. What's another one that's out there? That's at the top of the list there? Knights of the Old Republic, or the Old Republic in general. Why not get into the Sith Wars? Why not get into how the Mandalorians almost took over the entire Republic, and that the Jedi had to fight them back, and then some of them turned to the dark side and then became Sith, and you had that whole story arc there. Why not talk about that? Why not talk about Darth Bane and the Rule of Two and how he came up with that, and the development of, and talk about the Brotherhood, and all that with the Sith and the war that they had against the Jedi and the Republic, the Old Republic. What about those kinds of stories? What about stories like the story of Exar Kun, one of the best, most powerful Jedi Knights, saber duelists, the inventor basically of dual saber, and saber staff, basically double-bladed lightsaber techniques, became a Sith Lord, was able to darn near conquer everything, and then even when he was finally defeated, which is a great story in of itself, basically became a force spirit that lasted, and he was powerful enough to face off an extremely powerful Luke Skywalker many years later as a spirit, and almost defeat him and his students as a spirit. Now, that's an interesting story. What about the Thrawn trilogy, that came out, Timothy Zahn books? These are all movies we would love to see. We would all love to see it. Nobody, and I mean nobody, asked for Solo. So yeah, you put this generic template in there and nobody really cares. And then the release date, surrounded by newer, fresher would-be tempo flicks. Sure, it did have some pretty good competition with Infinity War and Deadpool 2. I'll give that some credit. But to me, the top reasons were A, it's the backlash from The Last Jedi and how folks and people are trying to send a message. And we just hope that the right message is being sent, that this is not Star Wars fatigue. The customers, we the customers, want good Star Wars movies. We want Star Wars movies that are not pushing agendas. We want Star Wars movies that are not pushing sexuality. We want Star Wars movies that are good versus evil and all of the wonderful timeless mythos and, fantasy, sci-fi that we grew up with and enjoyed. That's what we want. That's what we want. And as a paying customer, that's what we deserve. There's no reason not to do it. And I'm telling you, I don't care what anybody wants to say, Star Wars fatigue is a myth. When you have fans that are willing to go see a movie 10 times in the movie theater because they loved it so much, hey, I'm guilty of that. Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. When Star Wars first came out, I was too young to be able to go see it that many times. But that is what I did, and what many really, die-hard fans are like. If it's a good movie, if it's a solid Star Wars movie, we're going to come out and we're going to see it multiple times. You can't tell me. I mean, that's a complete garbage answer and a horrible excuse that it's Star Wars fatigue. Anyway, I'd love to hear what your comments are on this. Do you think Star Wars fatigue is legitimate? Do you think it's best that we wait 2 years, 3 years before another Star Wars story? Or do you think it's one of the other reasons that this article points out and that we discussed here in the last few minutes? Go ahead and post your comments below. Hit me up with a like, subscribe if you dig the channel, and have a wonderful day.